So what inspired me about children and dogs, and the specific one that I chose to write about, was kind of the ambiguous relationship almost between the children and the animals that they were interacting with. So with the one I chose, you have a dog with its mouth wide open next to a child, and I found that really intriguing. I thought, is it a relationship of love and affection, or is it a relationship kind of anger and frustration? And I thought that would be a really cool theme to explore. Quentin Blake's amazing because he has such a distinctive way of illustrating. Even if you didn't know it was him, you'd recognize the illustrations instantly. Out of, I think, the Roald Dahl books that he's illustrated, I really enjoyed like the Fantastic Mr. Fox series. Growing up as a child, I had that. I had Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I think in that one, the way he's depicting animals but giving them like human characteristics and personifying them is, it's great. I think it's amazing. This was difficult because I think I was thinking about like other galleries or other museums. And then the more I thought about it, I'm a Londoner, I grew up in London, and on the tube, there's like a series of poems on the Underground. And when I'm on my journeys, I always love just reading the like short little poems that you can see. And I feel like it just adds to your journey. So I'd love to have a little poem of mine up on the Underground. And I think that's such a nice way to display literature as well. It's not in a traditional setting, and it's kind of showing that poetry can be anywhere, it can be about anything, and it just makes your journey a bit better. So I'd love to have one there. It'd have to be the Mallory Towers series by Enid Blyton. I read them over and over again while I was growing up, and it was what made me want to go to boarding school, and I convinced my parents to send me to boarding school purely based on Mallory Towers, because I thought it was going to be midnight feasts and solving mysteries and all of that. I mean, it wasn't, I still enjoyed it, but yeah, Mallory Towers definitely, because it introduced me to a whole new world that I hadn't really experienced before. My favourite book, I think, of all time is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So actually, whenever I go into like a Waterstones or a bookshop, I always look at that, and I have my own copy of it at home, but I always like kind of picking it up and reading through my favourite bits. I think it's because I read it over quite a long time while I was at school. And so I kind of had it with me throughout the whole year. It took me ages to read. And if you don't know, it's about this group of college students who get involved kind of in like this twisted dark web of murder and Greek mythology and all of this. But it's amazing, and I think it kind of, it just got me interested. It mixes so many genres: romance, drama, mystery, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much. So definitely that book if I was going to any bookshop. I think it is a bit of both. It energizes me when sometimes I get hold of an idea or a thought or an image in my head, and I kind of like, I'm really excited about writing it down, and almost in that moment I have to bring out my phone and my notes app and just scribble it down. And in that sense, it energizes me. But also when you're dealing kind of with quite emotional topics or hard topics, it can exhaust you. But I think at the same time, for me, I've always found that writing is the way that I deal with emotional issues or hard issues, or kind of organize the thoughts in my head. I don't feel like I can think clearly unless it's been written down. So in that sense, although it does both, it's definitely something that I need. And when I don't write, I can really feel kind of at the back of my mind, like, I haven't been writing, my thoughts are kind of all jumbled and all over the place. Writing sorts them out for me. I like to think that there isn't a clear boundary between poetry and art, or poetry and the form that the poem is in, because both of them complement each other and intersect each other. So So I guess with my poem in the museum, I decided to write it in couplets because I wanted to formally like portray the relationship between the child and the animal. And some bits indented because I wanted to place emphasis on them or put them at the center literally of the structure of the poem. So I think before in my writing journey, I kind of didn't really look at form all that much and just thought about the words and the content that I was writing. And then as I've developed, I've realized that the two are kind of intertwined. And even if the person reading it doesn't consciously notice the couplets and like the relationship, I like to think it does subconsciously add to the meaning of the poem, and you're able to see how the two interlink. So I think studying theology, it's a subject about like the big questions in life, about the meaning of life and religion and God and what people believe. And I think being able to study like these great theologians and philosophers has given me a great appreciation not only for the language that they use, but the kind of issues that they're grappling with. So one of my favorite theologians is this guy called Saint Augustine, and he wrote this like his magnum opus on confessions. It was like theology, but it was also a prayer to God and him trying to work out what is creation, what is time, all of these big questions. So when I read that, I think I'm not only reading theology, I'm also reading poetry. And so when it comes then to writing my poetry, it's like maybe I'm not just writing a poem, but I'm also thinking about my philosophy and what I believe and how those two things connect with each other. So I think it's enabled me not only to not be afraid to grapple with those like big theological issues in my poems, but also to think about theology in terms of its component parts and its language, because of my love of poetry.